March 1991, and Hulk Hogan pins Sergeant Slaughter in the main event of WrestleMania 7 to win his third WWF World title. Hello and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Push Me Poll, an objective, weighted, data-driven ranking system based on which wrestlers were getting the biggest push in their respective companies in a given month. At the end of this month's top 10, I'll update the rolling PMP50 of the most pushed wrestlers of the previous 12 months. For March 91, we had our busiest month of the calendar year with 3 huge supercards involving 4 different companies, including 2 of the biggest crowds of the year, both at the Tokyo Dome. But before we get to the 2 Japanese dome shows, let's focus on the WWF's flagship annual event, WrestleMania 7, in what should have been the biggest crowd of the year, but got moved to a smaller venue because of poor ticket sales and getting a hammering in the mainstream media over their tasteless use of the Gulf War in their biggest storyline. Questionable politics aside, WrestleMania 7 was actually a pretty good show and kept up the WWF strong pay-per-views in the early 90s. To the surprise of no one, Hulk Hogan defeated American turncoat Sergeant Slaughter in the show's main event to become an unprecedented 3-time WWF World Champion in a match that was actually better than you'd think, given all the retrospective flack it takes. The Gulf War had actually ended by this point, which took some of the sting out of this, but there's a huge USA chant to start, and Slaughter bumps like a champ for Hogan. General Adnan interference swings the pendulum back to Slaughter, who takes over with methodical offense and takes it to the floor, where he nails Hogan with a chair and chokes him out with a TV cable, commentary indicating he's trying to get himself disqualified to keep the title. Slaughter applies the camel clutch, but Hogan makes the ropes. Another chair shot busts Hogan open, and this has actually turned into a pretty decent match at this point. A bloody Hogan powers out of another camel clutch and fires up when Slaughter tries to cover him with the Iraqi flag, ripping it up and hulking up, and we all know what's next. Punches, big boot, leg drop, Hogan wins his 3rd WWF title, waves the flag, the war is over. Hogan and Slaughter somehow ended up feuding for another 5 months after this definitive victory, as 1991 WWF just dragged on, but we'll get to all that in the coming videos. Hogan and Slaughter are numbers 1 and 2 for March. Elsewhere at WrestleMania 7, the Ultimate Warrior, in at number 4, beat Macho King Randy Savage in a huge retirement match, which I'm going to pause over for a minute because it was my match of the month for March. This was just superb, and for a guy who apparently couldn't work, Warrior was in the best match of the night for 2 WrestleManias in a row at this point. So, Savage had cost Warrior the WWF title at the Royal Rumble 2 months ago. The hatred was intense and there could be only one. We start the match seeing Miss Elizabeth, Savage's old manager, watching emotionally in the crowd. Warrior actually walks to the ring, putting over the seriousness of the occasion, and this was just great. Starting slowly with the crowd just popping for every single move and Queen Sherry interfering liberally on behalf of Macho. Savage takes control and hits 5 big elbows, his finisher, but Warrior kicks out. Warrior hits the press slam and splash, but Savage kicks out of that, and Warrior looks to the skies in disbelief. They continue onwards, and after 3 shoulder blocks, Warrior finally pins Savage with his foot on his chest. This was all just Shakespearean, and gets better still after the bell as Sherry berates and attacks Savage, prompting Elizabeth to run in for the save. So Savage and Miss Elizabeth finally reunite as he turns face and retires. Hugs, tears, theatre, perfection. Okay, Savage comes back in a few months' time, but as a moment, this is just one of the most iconic wrestling moments of all time. Brilliant stuff here. Other WWF wrestlers also dominate the March top 10, and this is partly due to WrestleMania, partly due to the WWF co-promoting a huge show in Japan with their new Japanese partners SWS, Super World of Sports, just 6 days after WrestleMania, that big show being WrestleFest at Tokyo Dome. Hulk Hogan teamed with the SWS's top star Genichiro Tenryu in the main event to take on the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, actually billed as the Road Warriors again for that match. And this was a huge match for Japan. All 4 were big names, and although the card as a whole wasn't great, the main event of WrestleFest was a brilliant spectacle. As usual, I'll put a link to that match in the video description and would urge you to watch it if you never have. It's, to the best of my knowledge, the only time Hogan, Hawk and Animal ever squared off and is well worth watching. All four of them start the match just throwing bombs at each other, which the fans love. Hawk and Animal get stereo press slams on Hogan and Tenryu. The fight quickly spills to the floor with Hogan and Hawk busting each other open and Tenryu and Animal brawling into the commentary area. Back in the ring, a Tenryu powerbomb on Hawk is broken up by Animal, a Hogan leg drop on Animal is broken up by Hawk, and a Doomsday device on Tenryu is broken up by Hogan with a chair. It spills to the floor again, and the Legion of Doom win by countout. This was an intense match with a predictable non-finish. No one was likely to take the pin in this one. It was a cool moment, but it didn't massively help SWS in the long run, as New Japan and All Japan die-hard fans were both against this new company from its inception. And the WWF, after rubbing both of the big two Japanese companies up the wrong way last year, had thrown its lot in with Tenryu and SWS as their new partners in the Japanese market, but sadly the company wouldn't last much more than a year after this show. But it was kind of cool while it lasted, and we did get this certainly memorable tag team match out of it, at least. The Legion of Doom make number 6 for March, and Genichiro Tenryu makes number 10, and maybe quitting All Japan last year might work out for Tenryu after all. Let's see as the year unfolds. The other WWF stars in this month's top 10 all appeared on both the WrestleMania 7 and WrestleFest in Tokyo Dome cards. So Earthquake won matches against Greg Valentine and Koji Kitao and was still wrestling Hogan on the house show circuit in the lead up to Mania, a full year after they started their program, which is bonkers. Earthquake makes number 7 for March. The Hart Foundation dropped the WWF tag team titles to the Nasty Boys at Mania and were about to go their separate ways, but won a good little match against the Rockers in the Tokyo Dome before doing so. They're at number 8. And Intercontinental Champion Mr. Perfect was number 9, escaping with his title intact against the Big Boss Man at WrestleMania 7 and against the Texas Tornado at WrestleFest. Bubbling under the top 10 for the WWF were the other Mania competitors on their biggest card of the year. So Ted DiBiase lost to Virgil by countout, Texas Tornado beat Dino Bravo, the Rockers beat Haku and Barbarian, The Undertaker beat Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Jake Roberts beat Rick Martel, the Mountie beat Tito Santana, British Bulldog beat the Warlord, and Demolition faced Tenryu and Kitao in an interpromotional match. So that was 2 of March's 3 big shows. The third was another huge show at the Tokyo Dome, New Japan co-promoting with WCW for the first time to present Starrcade at Tokyo Dome about a week and a half before the WWF/SWS show, and pulling substantially more fans there, which was great for New Japan and even better for WCW, giving the struggling number 2 US company a big shot in the arm in terms of international credibility. The main event of the first WCW New Japan Super Show was also a pretty huge first-time dream match, arguably the greatest American wrestler of the past 10 years, Ric Flair, in at number 5 for March, versus arguably the greatest Japanese wrestler of the same time period, Tatsumi Fujinami, in at number 3, with allegedly both titles of those two companies on the line after Fujinami had regained the IWGP title from Big Van Vader at the start of the month. The match itself was okay. Again, I'll link to it, though arguably both of them were passing their primes. Flair tries to keep the tempo slow and deliberate while Fujinami consistently tries to up the pace. They exchange chops and are pretty evenly matched. Flair works the leg, softening Fujinami up for the figure 4. Fujinami targets Flair's bad back. Flair gets busted open and the Japanese fans rally behind Fujinami. But then the political nonsense kicks in, and we'll get more into this over the next couple of months. But in short, WCW referee Bill Alfonso takes a bump, Fujinami gets a visual pin over Flair, but then backdrops Flair out of the ring, which is a DQ under WCW rules. New Japan referee Tiger Hattori then charges in and counts Fujinami's pin on Flair. Tatsumi Fujinami has apparently unified the WCW and IWGP titles. Fujinami was immediately recognised as the new NWA World Champion in Japan, but WCW were playing their cards close to their chest and saying Flair was still WCW Champion. Confusing times, to say the least, and we'll get more into this controversy in the next video, as it takes a bit of unravelling and gets way more complicated than it ever needed to be. Elsewhere at the WCW New Japan Dome show, the Great Muta beat Sting after missing him, El Gigante beat Big Cat, WCW World Tag Team Champions the Steiner Brothers beat Hiroshi Hase and Kensuke Sasaki to win the IWGP Tag Team titles as well. Arn Anderson and Barry Windham beat Masa Saito and Masa Chono. Big Van Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow beat Doom. Riki Choshu beat Tiger Jeet Singh. And Junior Heavyweight Champion Jushin Liger beat Akira Nagami. For the other companies outside of the top 10 this month, in All Japan, Jumbo Tsuruta remained Triple Crown Champion. Steve Williams and Terry Gordy remained World Tag Team Champions. And the 1991 Champion Carnival began. In the USWA in Memphis, Jerry Lawler regained the USWA title from Terry Funk and also held the USWA Tag Team titles alongside Jeff Jarrett. And in Mexico's EMLL, this month's top technicos were Pirata Morgan, who beat MS1 in a hair match, Black Magic Norman Smiley, Kato Kung Lee, who beat Kung Fu in a hair match, and Mil Mascaras, while the top rudos were Kamala, Fuerza Guerrera, Satanico and Pero Aguayo, who beat Conan in a mask match, ending Conan's run under a mask, surprisingly early in his career, but a loss. That would work out pretty well for him. Right, so how does this busy month of March affect the rolling PMP50? As a reminder, the PMP50 updates on a rolling month-by-month basis, similar to rolling tennis rankings, so we subtract the push scores for March 1990 and add the scores for March 91 to cover the 12-month period of April 1990 to March 1991. Looking at the PMP50, Ultimate Warrior is still the wrestler of the year for this period, with Hogan still number 2, but expect those positions to flip again by around the mid-year point. The big mover in the top 10 is Sergeant Slaughter, who rises 5 spots from number 8 to number 3. Savage dropping to number 4 and Sting staying at 5. Ric Flair and Mr. Perfect remain 6 and 7, while Earthquake rises 1 spot to 8, which I'm pretty sure is the highest he ever got. All Japan's Stan Hansen and Jumbo Tsuruta drop places but stay in the top 10. Ted DiBiase stays at number 11, while the Hart Foundation rise another couple of spots to 12. The WWF's Texas Tornado, Legion of Doom and Hacksaw Jim Duggan all make rises inside the top 20, as do New Japan's Tatsumi Fujinami and Big Van Vader, who traded the IWGP title this month. Fujinami making a massive jump from 44 to 19 with his huge win over Ric Flair at the Tokyo Dome that we just talked about. The WWF's dependable workhorse Haku moves back up a few spots to 22 with appearances at both WrestleMania and WrestleFest, with fellow WWF mid-carders Rick Martel, Greg Valentine and the Rockers all making gains inside the top 30 as well, as do the Barbarian and the Warlord further down the top 50. For WCW, Arn Anderson and Barry Windham were still being pushed strong due to their Four Horsemen association with Flair, bumping up to number 27 as a tag team. The Steiner brothers move up to number 34, now both the WCW World and IWGP Tag Team Champions, and I expect the Steiners to continue to move up the rankings in the next few months. There are 3 new entries into the PMP50 this month, indicated by the yellow circles. Superfly Jimmy Snuka at number 42. So Snuka's interesting. He'd been back in the WWF a couple of years as a kind of veteran lower mid-carder, but re-enters the top 50, more due to the WWF losing a variety of big names than any increased push for Snuka. So within the last year, the WWF had lost big singles names like Rick Rude, Dusty Rhodes, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, Bad News Brown, Honky Tonk Man. And Snuka re-entering was more the existing mid-carders were getting more space in the mid-card as a result of those losses. So anyway, we've got Superfly re-entering at 42. We've got former WCW Tag Team Champions Doom, Butch Reed and Ron Simmons, finally debuting at number 45, even though ironically they'd just broken up, but they'd still been WCW Tag Team Champions for 9 of the previous 12 months. And Big El Gigante making his debut at number 47 as a result of mixing up with Flair and Sting these last couple of months in the WCW main event. So, with Snuka, Doom and Gigante entering, we say goodbye to the Orient Express tag team, Shinya Hashimoto and Rayo de Jalisco Jr. this month. And that leaves us with the WWF still dominating with 28 of the 50 spots, WCW's PMP presence rising to 9 spots, New Japan and All Japan tied with 6 spots each, and 1 spot still for the USWA. So join me next time for April 1991 and how the major companies all reset after the busiest month of the year. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave any comments below, and keep watching as we move on through 91, looking at who was being pushed hardest and where. Cheers!